Welcome to the North Texas Vetting Committee for the position of the 5th District Court of Appeals, Place 2. We have with us today Bill Whitehill.
That's it.
I'm going to read the rules out loud, which are: no one is allowed to be in the room except the vetting panel and the candidate. All electronics will be in the room. Let me try this again. All electronics allowed in the room shall be turned off except laptops used by the vetting committee and the video recorders provided by the vetting committee. Cell phones or voice recorders shall be turned off in the room. No written material or notes will be taken by the candidate. North Texas Council vetting panel members and candidate agree that all questions and responses at this vetting session are to remain confidential property until videos are uploaded and considered public information on the North Texas Council website. Verbal questions will be asked and verbal responses to those questions will be given with 2-minute response for each question. There will not be any follow-up questions or explanations of the questions given during the video session. You may, however, request for a repeat of a question at the time the question was first asked during this video session. We will now introduce the vetting committee members. I'm Gordon Edwards from Ovilla, Texas.
Liz Moser, Garland, Texas.
Bob Morrison, Dallas.
Barbara Harless from Murphy, Texas.
And Brad Ford from Midlothian, Texas.
Again, Bill Whitehill is with us today. Please start us off with a 2-minute introduction of yourself and why you are running.
Hi, my name is Bill Whitehill, and I'm running for the 5th Court of Appeals, Place 2. Just a little bit about me. I live in Coppell, Texas with my wife of 33 years. We have 3 grown children. We attend Valley Ranch Baptist Church. I'm a partner with the Gardier & Wynn Law Firm, where I've been for 30 years, been a partner there for 23 years. Since this is a judicial race, I'll start with my judicial philosophy. I believe in the Constitution that was written 225 years ago, and it needs to be enforced the way it was written 225 years ago. I believe it's the court's job to enforce the statutes just the way the legislature wrote them. I think that, as we have seen in the past week, the judicial activism is an aberration, an abhorrence on our land, and it needs to be stopped out. And I can promise you, you will never see an opinion out of me like we saw from John Roberts. I'm in this race because I'm passionate about the rule of law, and I'm passionate about this court's role as the guardian of rule of law. The rule of law is vital to our society. People need to know what the law is so that they can plan their businesses, make good business decisions, make investments with confidence that their contracts are going to be enforced, their property rights are going to be protected. I'm passionate about the law and the study of law. I'm one of those weird guys that loved every minute of the law school. Didn't sit on the front row, but I love the academics and the study of law, and that's what this court is all about. This is not a trial court. We don't try cases. We decide legal questions. It's important to you because when this court decides a case, it has to write an opinion that says what the court did, why they did it. That opinion then becomes the precedent that is binding on all the trial courts in our 6-county area. So this court will affect your life every day, regardless of whether you ever have a case within the court system. I invite you to visit whitehillforjustice.com and see why so many leading lawyers in the community, people who know the candidates in this race, know what this court is all about. People like Harriet Myers, Bob Mao, and others are supporting me in this race. Bill Whitehill, I'll appreciate your vote, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now going to start the questions. You will have 2 minutes to answer each of the following 14 questions. Question number 1. Per your website, you have claimed to have studied the Bible. Which Bible do you study?
The NIV Bible, Bible Study Fellowship, where I've been for 9 years.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2. Who do you study the Bible with and where?
I study the Bible, like I said just a second ago, for 9 years. I took this year off for the campaign with an organization called Bible Study Fellowship. It's an international organization dedicated to going through. There are 8 segments of the Bible that we go through on an annual, different segment each year. This is done in a uniform basis throughout the world. It's a program where there is a reading assignment. You meet in a small group after you've done the reading, you've answered 2 pages worth of questions about the assignment. You meet in a small group every Monday night, discuss the answers to the question, then there's a lecture program and do that. I'm also in a small group study with my friends and family at Valley Ranch Bible Church in Coppell, Texas.
Question 3. When precedence has not been set on a particular law, where do you draw the line between following the Constitution and interpreting the law?
The number one goal, the oath that we'll take, is to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So the bottom line is always the Constitution. Now, it's up to a party to raise the constitutional issue in a case that will come before the court. The goal in deciding any case in which the application of a statute is at issue is to read the words that the legislature wrote and apply the statute the way the legislature wrote them. Sometimes that's not necessarily easy to do because sometimes the legislature is not entirely clear in the statutes that they write. Then you have to look at what was the goal that the legislature was trying to accomplish, what was the problem to be solved, and then look at that within the realms of what is within the legislature's power to act and to enact. It is not our job to legislate from the bench. If people don't like what the legislature did, then they need to take it up with the legislature, but it's just simply not the court's job, as we saw last week, to be rewriting statutes.
Okay, thank you. Question number 4. How do you administer justice when laws conflict with the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution?
The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So if there's a conflict between a legislative enactment and the U.S. Constitution, or the Texas Constitution, if that's the case, then the Constitution wins. That's a given.
Thank you. Question number 5. Where does the Bible justify you to be a judge over people?
We are instructed to follow our governmental leaders. There is a part of the Bible that, as I recall, deals with judges, which were back in the Old Testament, that were leaders. But we're to render unto Caesar which is Caesar's, and to render unto God which is God's. There is, of course, within the Constitution the requirement that somebody has to resolve issues, disputes between parties. And it's the judicial branch that is designated to do that. And since that is what is necessary to have happen, and the government through the people, through the process of creating a constitution, have created a judiciary, that's the authority to do that.
Okay, question number 6. How does the Bible relate to the law?
In what context?
I can repeat the question, but I can't do any follow-ups. Would you like me to repeat it? How does the Bible relate to the law?
I think you start with the 10 Commandments, for example, which set the basic principles of morality on which all of our laws are supposed to be established. And then through the Constitution, we apply those laws as the legislature wrote them. But I believe that the 10 Commandments are vital to our society. They are a bedrock of our society and are the principles in which our laws are founded. That's it.
Thank you. Question 7, there's 2 parts. Is the U.S. Constitution the basis for rule of law? If so, how will you justify not legislating from the bench when a law conflicts with the Constitution?
I think that the basis of the Constitution is described in the Declaration of Independence, and they're the God-given inalienable rights. The Constitution is sort of a user's manual to tell you how to operate a government that is based upon those God-given inalienable rights. Think of the Declaration of Independence as a new car, and the Constitution is the user's manual that tell you how to operate the car. The Declaration tells us what we've got. We've got a nation endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights. The Constitution created a structure to protect those rights and defend them from overreaching governments. In that case, what was fresh on the founders' minds was, of course, the overreaching monarchy from England. But they knew well from history and their studies that there is, in a vacuum, always going to be an authoritarian form of government that will fill the void. Therefore, it is up to the people to protect those rights. As to how to resolve the conflict between the Constitution and any legislative act, again, the Constitution says it is the supreme law of the land. And whenever there is a question, as of last week, for example, properly applied, the Supreme Court should have thrown out the Obamacare because there is no basis within the Constitution for a federal government to regulate any person's inactivity. I think that the taxing of inactivity is unconstitutional, but I guess I lost on that argument. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Question number 8. How do you administer justice in a system that creates confusion and control over people?
One of the important things for the appellate courts to do is because we have to write opinions that explain what we did and why we did it. Those opinions need to be clear, concise, and consistent so that everybody can read them and understand what we did. That's important for several reasons. One, the parties to the case need to have confidence that the appellate court understood the issues, dealt with the issues, and dealt with them in a way that is logical and rational. In other words, they had their day in court and they had a fair shot. It's important for the citizens to know, to be able to read an opinion and see what the law is so that they know and can have confidence that the courts are working the way that they're intended to work, that they're being fair, they're being impartial, and that there's rational thought that is being applied as the courts go through the process of identifying the issues, addressing the issues, and resolving them in a way that is based upon the existing law as created either by the legislature, Constitution, legislature, or in Texas where we are based in large part on the common law. It's important for people to know, be able to read the opinion so that they can plan their businesses, make informed business decisions, know that when they invest in a project, that investment is going to be protected because property rights are going to be protected, that they can assess the risk in their project based upon the existing law, knowing that that law is not going to change and it's going to be applied to their project or their decision, their business making, unless the legislature comes in and changes the results, and then of course you have a problem with ex post facto laws, but that's a whole different discussion. Society, the rule of law, free market economic system depends upon the rule of law being applied clear, concise, and consistently. That's what I do best, is do legal writing clear, concise, and consistently.
Thank you. Question number 9. Why are there so many laws?
We live in a complex society. Laws are designed to help organize people so that they can deal with each other in a civil and organized way. Hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, the societies were much more simple in their organizations and structures. Today, the velocity of transactions in the economy, the wide variety of the economy, the wide variety of relationships that exist in our society require some structure and some organization so that people can have predictability, so that their property rights can be protected. There are a lot of things to cover out there, from business relationships to family relationships to trust relationships. There has to be a criminal code so that society has a way through their representative form of government to say what is acceptable behavior and what isn't acceptable behavior in our civil society. And that's how we ended up with so many laws. Now, there can be debate philosophically among the politicians as to whether we need all those laws, whether we need all those regulations, and we need all that. But the job of the court, of course, is to take the law as the legislature presents it.
Thank you. Question number 10. With the Supreme Court decision on the health care mandate, Is it now settled in American jurisprudence that abortion, death policy of human life forms, is to be provided to all residents in America, and now be expanded to people in America in violation of immigration's laws?
Would you repeat that again, please?
Sure. With the Supreme Court decision on the health care mandate, is it now settled in American jurisprudence, excuse me on that word, that abortion, death policy of human life forms is to be provided to all residents in America, and now be expanded to people in America in violation of immigration laws?
Well, I have not read the entire Obamacare Act, so I can't tell you exactly what all is in it. To the extent that there are provisions in there that require those things to happen, that is now the law of the land until either the Supreme Court in a subsequent case changes its mind, or the Congress, the people acting through its Congress, change the law, or the people on their own behalf pass and implement a constitutional amendment to change those results. I personally am concerned, and we heard at an event earlier today, people talking about the same concerns I have, that being that there is now unlimited power. There is a Supreme Court precedent that says, in effect, the federal government has unlimited power and authority over every aspect of every individual's life, by virtue of the fact that if you don't do what they tell you to do, they can tax you. And we all know that the power to tax is the power to destroy. For example, what if there was to pass a statute that said every individual needs to purchase solar panels from a company called Solyndra? And if you don't purchase solar panels from Solyndra, regardless of whether you want solar panels in the first place or you prefer to buy them somewhere else, they can tax you to the point where if you don't pay the tax, they'll come take your house from you. So this is a very alarming, very concerning power that the Supreme Court has now said exists within the federal government, that a power that has never been contemplated, I think, by anybody in the history of our country, that needs to be addressed and dealt with.
All right, thank you. Number 11, where will you display the 10 Commandments in your courtroom?
Well, if I have the opportunity to make that decision, I would display them. I'm trying to envision where in the courtroom they would go. There are 12 other justices on the court, so there would have to be some form of agreement on it. I would display them in a place that makes clear to the people coming into the courtroom that American law, Texas law, has as its bedrock the principles established in the historical document of the 10 Commandments. The precise location, it would be somewhere that would be visible.
Okay, thank you. Question number 12, how does Sharia law fit in America?
It doesn't. I can tell you that American law, Texas law, is to be decided by American citizens, and in the case of Texas law, Texas citizens. If somebody were to bring to me a dispute that is an open question of law under Texas law, because that's almost assuredly what I'll be dealing with on the Texas Court of Appeals, say, well, I know this is an open question of law, this is what we think it ought to be, but really you ought to consider what the French are doing in this area of law. I would reject that out of hand. It is probably detrimental to whoever argued that point of view. It just has no place.
Okay.
Thank you. Question number 13. How do you define conservatism? Name or identify what you do on a daily basis that defines your definition.
Conservatism, you go to the root, means to conserve something. And what is it that we're trying to conserve? In my view, I'm trying to conserve the Christian values that I was raised with, the Christian values that I have shared with my wife, the Christian values that we have taught to our family, to our kids if they have grown up. We're trying to preserve the rule of law as it exists That's important. I do that on a daily basis in any number of ways. I try to do it just in the way that I live my life. My poor children, when they went off to college, became subjected to my daily emails with links to Walter Williams, Thomas Sowell, and other conservative authors, because I knew that when they went off to college they were not going to get the truth, and I wanted them to have the conservative side of the story, and I do that. In my practice of law, there are some lawyers who believe that you can stretch a little here, stretch a little there, maybe push things beyond their boundaries, and I don't believe in that. I believe that you deal honestly with folks, you deal honestly with opponents, you deal honestly with the court, and do the best that you can in the way that you lead your life. I think people need to be able to observe a person and know from observing that person and how they act, the person that they are and their character.
Okay, thank you. Question number 14, and this is your last question. Would you like to take this time to correct any accusations pointed toward you or your campaign, or point out any differences between you and your opponent?
Well, now that you've asked, I had hoped to go through the campaign without, on the basis of just heads-up competition on individuals to individuals. At the beginning of this campaign, almost a year ago now, my opponent accurately stated that in 2008 I had voted in the Democratic primary. Left out the fact that I have a consistent voting record and a long history of voting in Republican primaries, a long history of contributing to Republican candidates. Would not acknowledge the fact that in 2008 I contributed $1,000 to the McCain-Palin campaign, which I think confirms that what I did in 2008 was participate in Operation Chaos, which millions of conservative Americans did. I did it because I saw the absolute train wreck that Barack Obama would be coming miles down the road. And, you know, sometimes you have to do difficult things, kind of like when our patriots did what was at the time regarded treason to their country. It was not comfortable, but they had to do the right thing because that was what was necessary to preserve liberty. That's what I was doing. Now, in 2008, my opponent didn't bother to vote in the primary, but he did, in that campaign season, contribute $1,000 to the John Edwards campaign. He, 2006, accepted an endorsement from John Wiley Price to be a part of the Democratic team when John Wiley Price encouraged voters in Dallas to vote for Mr. Evans and several other Republicans as members of the Democratic team. Never disavowed that. There are other things that we can talk about, but it's regrettable that we had to get to the point where we talk about those things. Personally, I think that I stand on my record and am happy to do so.